VeeFam, welcome back to another episode of the VeeFam Sessions. My name is Mr. Messer, but you can call me Rob, and I'm so privileged to be here with Jake Escobar, VeeFriend, dad, artist, Uno champion of the world, better known as Ghost Kid. Ghost Kid, Jake, how are you? First of all, thanks for being here. How are you?
Doing well, man. Thanks for the. I'm so stoked. I know we had a delayed a week. Had some stuff going on, so I'm just happy to be here, man. Thanks for the invite. I love talking
Of
anything about VeeFriends too. So,
Of course, of course. Obviously, and we'll get into all of your accolades here, but you've been around a while, like on the timeline. So you've caught my radar, like myself. I just kind of watch and get the lay of the land, and you've been here for a while now, and I can't wait to dive in. And I'm sure the audience is going to love to hear your story. So with that. I always like to take it back to the beginning. So if you don't mind, can you give us the quick, I call it 55-second Cliff Note version on who Jake Escobar is prior to ever getting into Web3?
oh sure. So yeah. Well, again, thanks for having me, man. So I'm from Utah. My parents are from Guatemala. They both met up in Utah, had me. I was an oops baby. My dad is actually he's 93. My dad's an old fetch, and my mom is 20 years younger than. Anyway, I come from a crazy background as far as that, but just stoked to be here. But went through high school, did all the things. I was a punk rocker kid, but I was just happy to be anywhere, right? And so after high school, I took a year off just working, and then I decided to go to school for audio production and didn't really pan out. Realized I liked it more as like a hobby. So like I liked writing music and stuff like that. But with that, I met my wife during that time. She friend zoned me pretty hard for a few years, and then we decided, we're just best friends. Got married. But she always kind of believed in me. Always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and so I think one of the things is like when me and my wife got married, I was just like, hey babe, like I listen to Gary Vee a ton, and so I was trying to tell her like who he was, and just been like, hey, like I'm gonna make a business. I don't know what's gonna happen, but we're gonna make it work. And so like I have to sacrifice our evenings, but we'll have our weekends. But like after school and after like work and stuff, like 6 p.m. onward, like I'm just gonna grind. And she's like, you know what, I support that. So it's super cool. Like I think anything that I've been able to do has been because of my wife. But that's kind of our story. We've been in the next 2 weeks, we've been married 7 years. But when kind of COVID happened and all that, I was listening to Gary, and I had stopped for a while. I'd been kind of on and off. But I listened to one of his podcasts, and he talked about NFTs, and he talked about VeeFriends, and I didn't understand anything that he said about it, but it kind of piqued my interest. And the way that he talked about it was just super cool. And that was February of 21. So it was a minute, but yeah, just kind of before then, I've just been kind of run around. I worked for customer service for a lot of years, but I'm just a huge family guy. I love rock music. I love scary things. Like that's all my scary
I
artwork in the back. But that's who I am. So yeah, that's who I was before Web3.
I love that, and congratulations on the upcoming anniversary. So you mentioned after school, you what were you doing for work? Or were you talking about your kids after school?
So after work, I was trying to figure out. So my parents, because so I guess I was saying when they're from Guatemala, I kind of had to figure out a lot of things on my own. Just because they were immigrants and they didn't understand like English as their first language. And so like I had to enroll myself to like do high school stuff. And then like I had to do that for college as well. And so I kind of felt like I was figuring everything out and my friends are kind of giving me tips in that. But I was working at a call center for a year and I didn't realize till after that year, I was like, oh, I could actually go to college. And I don't have to have the money now. And so like student loans, right? But I kind of just figured all of that out on my own. So yeah, I just worked a call center job. I hated it. Still worked it for like 2 years after while I was going to school, and then I took a break to actually go on a church mission as a missionary, teaching people about Jesus Christ for 2 years. So I lived in Spain for 2 years, came home, met my wife, and then was continually
Mm,
going to school, and then we got married,
got
and
it.
then we're
Got
just hanging out. So.
So cool. I wanna tap into the Gary thing. So yeah, get very motivating, right? So you said you wanted to start a business. What did you end up doing during those months, years?
Yeah, so I had the idea. I've had quite a few ideas. It really ramped up when I got married to my wife, Kira. But when we first got married, we got her wedding ring. I mean, well, we talked about it and we did the engagement and all that, and so kind of planned for that. But then, after we were engaged, like, all right, we got to find your ring. And so, um, we were looking at like, I don't really want to spend like 300 to 500 bucks on like my ring. So like, can I just get this dinky one I found online on eBay? And she's like, yeah, sure, it's fine. And it was a tungsten carbide ring, and it was super legit, super anti-scratch, super heavy, feels good in your hand.
Mm.
And realized it was like the same ring that they were charging like 300 bucks at the jewelry store. And so I was like, oh, I got to find out who makes these. And so I just went on Alibaba, which is an online marketplace for just
Yeah.
suppliers from overseas, right? So I found suppliers who made tungsten rings. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And so that's actually what we ended up doing. So like the last 7 years, I've been trying to figure out jewelry. And so I figured out the product. It just took me like 5 years to figure out the branding and marketing because I had no idea how to do it. So that's kind of what I've been working on the whole time. And we don't sell them for $300 to $500, but we kind of meet like around $100, right? So we kind of meet in with that competition. But the hardest part for me was just how do I make this look good? How do I convey a certain message of value to other people? Even though like I think the product is super cool, I still have to convince others. And so that's what I've been figuring out like for that whole time, basically. So
That's awesome. Congrats. I mean, that's a long time to keep it going. Um, but
yeah.
good for you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I had no idea. Uh, and that's a good market to be in. Somehow in my algorithm, I have these like watch and jewelry guys that go like to the city and they like barter and they do all these deals, and I'm like, man, like it's like have you seen Uncut Gems, that Adam Sandler movie?
No, no, I was actually
Yeah.
just thinking about that the other day because I hadn't seen it, and that's more of like a serious role for him, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Movie.
like it's definitely dark and serious, and I think he may have gotten nominated for an Oscar. Like he did a fantastic job. Like the movie is
Awesome.
like deep, but he's like a jeweler. He's like a jewelry dealer. And I'm like, wow, like they really have like it's a good market to be in. High ticket items, like pretty good margins. Anyway, that just made me think of that. So you're an entrepreneur, but I also, and if you're watching on YouTube, behind Jake is like this amazing wall, and it reminds, and I've seen it on your timeline too. It reminds me of those scary stories books, like back in the day. I think they were just called scary stories, like with the black cover with the red
Uh-huh.
border. I don't know
Yeah,
if you had those when you were a kid, but it's just like
absolutely.
screaming to me, like it's bringing me back to like second grade. Um, so like talk to me about your art journey. You're obviously amazing, have an amazing talent. But yeah, like have you always been an artist? Have you always been into this?
So I mean, I think like the thing is like, I like to call myself like a creator. I could say artist too, which is totally fine. But so right when Gary, I'll kind of bring it back just a little bit. It'll kind of make sense as I talk about it. But February 21, like I understood, or I started to figure out what NFTs were. Then I saw the drop with VeeFriends in May. And then that's 21, right? Yeah, I was 21.
Yep.
And I started to understand more blockchain because I had kind of thrown in money in some crypto. And I was like, why do people like this stuff? And so I was kind of understanding what blockchain was. And then it really clicked with NFTs. I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. But in order for me to learn it, I was like, I have to create something. And so what I understood was like before the trend of like a 10K collection was going on, um, I was like, well, I have to make a 10K collection. And so it was literally just for fun, just to learn. So I told my wife, I'm like, dude, I think this is going to be really cool. Anyway, and so me and my wife come up with this idea, and we did actually, they're called Happy Land Gummy Bears. You can check them out on OpenSea or whatever. We did pretty well, but we were going to sell them for, we ended up doing a free mint of them. But I understood that like I wasn't an artist at that time. And I was like, oh man, like I don't know, like I have things that I want, but I just don't know how to convey it. So I have to hire someone to like do it. And so I actually talked to a bunch of artists and I was just like, hey, like let's do this. And they're like just gave me the best ideas, the best aesthetics, and I was just kind of the art director, which is like what I like to call myself more as is like I'm the art
Mm.
director. I have the eyeball for what I want. And that's what it was. And so I was just like, these are the perfect looking gummy bears for this collection. Um, And so that's kind of what started the journey of art for me, which is super opposite of what I'm doing now with like this scary artwork. But it's so I use Midjourney and I use Photoshop to create this art as an artist, and it's just I run through and I get people attacking me all the time on like, oh, it's AI or whatever, but like I'm not doing anything other than express myself. Like people can get mad at AI all the time, but most people actually don't care, and so I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm just posting this just to post this. Like I have a pretty big following on Instagram, and it's just because people like it. And I was like, I wasn't really trying to do anything else, like as far as benefit to me. Like this is just the way I express myself. A lot of people will be like, "Do you do commissions?" Like I actually don't. And then people were like, "Well, people will think that this is like my main hobby or like my main work line of work." No, actually into jewelry. Like I'm actually the artist thing is just for fun. But what you were saying as far as like second grade for me was third grade was Stephen Gamble, which is like my favorite artist, which is based upon this art right behind me. And so like I just love this scary stories book because I'm actually a huge horror fan. And just anything that's scary for me, I don't know what it is about the storytelling and the tragedy behind the kind of just dark movies and stuff. I just really love it, and I've always been like that. And I'm actually a huge Christian guy, so like I believe in Christ, and like I'm very, but like a lot of people in my circles who are Christian are very, not to say there's like a cookie cutter way to be as like a Christian, but a lot of them don't like this stuff. And so like
Sure.
I'm very opposite of that. And so people are like, "Oh, you like aren't like a Satanist?" I'm like, no, like I love Jesus, but like I just love really dark things. I don't know if you're familiar with Tom Bilyeu, but there's something
Yeah.
that he someone the lines like someone like Gary Vee, right? So someone who does business and entrepreneurship, but he says something like he talks about like the dark side almost, like he says like, I have 80% positivity or like 90% positivity in my life, but I have to tap into like that 10% dark side to like
Mm.
find that extra rage or that power to like for business. And so I'm like, oh, I feel like that makes so much sense for me. So I don't spend a lot of time here, but I just enjoy it. It's super cool. And so it's just I don't know if I answered your question.
No, no,
Yeah.
that's really cool. I love no, I love where you went with it. And that's a really interesting quote from Tom. Yeah, I'm super into, I wouldn't say super into him because I know everyone's got their super fans, but I got impact theory and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so and I feel like if you're gonna tap into that 10%, like that's a really good outlet for it, like to create and to do that as far as well as the drive to like grind out with business and stuff. But
Yeah.
super fascinating work. Like it's not something like I gravitate to all the time. I'm definitely not someone that like snap judgments like I'm not going to do that because I believe in God and Jesus and all that, and I know that I am very aware of that world. But it's super like interesting to me. um with that, like I have to, we're getting to the season here. What's the go-to, not mainstream, what's your go-to like scary movie,
Go to scary movie. There's a
scary horror
ton
movie
that I
that most of us probably won't think won't.
so there's one called Lake Mungo. It's an Australian film. It's a documentary actually.
Okay.
I can't spoil it too much, but it has a lot of paranormal stuff. I just watched it just like 2 nights ago. And it's still, and I watched it again. I haven't seen it for a few years, but every time I watch it, I'm like, oh man, I just remember how much I love that film. Super unsettling. There's not like a ton of jump scares or anything like that, but it's really well done as far as like the production behind it, but it's very terrorizing. So that's like a scary one if you want to get scared.
Okay.
Or just unsettled. Like it's just unsettling. Like it's just so unsettling. And I've seen a lot of films and it's just one of my favorites. And it's held up for like the last 20 years or so. So Lake Mungo, that's a super good one to check out.
All
But
right,
I think
noted.
more recently, if there's one that's more, so this one isn't as gory. This is one that's just more like unsettling or whatever. But if you're like a little more on the gory side, but not too much, there's an Argentinian film called When Evil Lurks that came out 2 years ago. You'll have to watch it with subtitles because it's in Spanish, but it's still super good. And that one's also on a kind of tone of possession. But my here's a real plug for my kid real quick. He was born on Halloween, and
Oh wow.
he'll be 6 this Halloween. But I remember when my wife was pregnant, her due date was October 27th, I believe. And I remember posting our announcement like on Instagram, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, my wife is giving me a Halloween baby for," or I said like giving me like our baby for Halloween or something like that. And then it wasn't until like I looked back on that post, like, "Oh my gosh, she really did." And so, Halloween's always been a huge thing like in my life, and my siblings too. They're the ones who like showed me a lot of like Halloween scary vibes and stuff, and just love dressing up for Halloween and stuff like that. But yeah, yeah. So scary movies. I've been ramping up some scary movies this past week or so, going into to next month. Well, to October. So
Amazing. Well, that's super cool that you literally have a Halloween baby, considering your background and passion. Um, but so, and thank you for the plug. I mean, I had a feeling that you know some. I didn't know you were gonna throw two international. I thought we were gonna be a little bit more mainstream, but you really know your stuff. Two foreign picks here. So thank you. I will definitely check them out because I like to get in that spirit via film. So to get back on track here, so Gary, you're following Gary. You've obviously used him as an inspiration to jump into your own business on that journey. But he starts talking about NFTs. You had crypto before, you said, right? You bought some prior to that.
yeah, on
Okay.
Coinbase, I have just a little bit.
Got it. So he's telling everyone to get your ETH, get your MetaMask. Are you at this point, are you doing whatever he says just because you're bought into Gary V, or do you hear about NFTs elsewhere and you're like connecting the dots yourself, like this could be big? Where are you mentally pre you know, April, super early May 2021?
Just learning about it. Anything I learned about was from him. I think he'd probably mentioned OpenSea at one point, and then I just looked on it, and I would just spend hours every day just looking at collections and that and artwork, and that was it. During his launch in May, I just sat on the sidelines. I didn't even have any ETH to like to jump in or anything. I just remember thinking like that's a lot of money. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like that's so much. Like, and I don't even know how that works. And like, I think at that point as well, like I've been hearing a little bit of scams, and so I was a little hesitant in that regard too. I was like, oh man, like what if I do this wrong, or what if I do the transaction wrong? I don't know if you remember like your first transaction on Ethereum, and you're just like,
It's
did
mortifying.
it work? You're like, did it
Yeah.
work? I don't know if it worked. In like 60 seconds, like it's just like kind of numbing for a minute. But yeah, I just kind of, we really didn't learn about stuff until, or at least take action until that summer. But I just remember seeing everyone in the site, like just who was minting. And I was just like, oh, it was a cool vibe. But like, I really still kind of didn't understand it other than like this artwork. The main thing I understood is this artwork is yours. Um, and I was just like, I don't know how that works, but like, I don't even know how the internet works, but I'll trust Gary, and he's excited
Right.
about it, so let's go. But
Yeah, it was definitely a cool time. But yeah, you're very, very unsettling. To know how these transactions work and to know how much money was just kind of floating in limbo for those few seconds for some people. So you're saying you didn't jump into VeeFriends till summer of 2021.
I didn't jump in. Well, we didn't jump into NFTs fully creating
Hmm.
until summer of 21, but we snagged our first VeeFriend in September of that year. So even later on, and so even then, I don't remember a lot of the community at that point. I didn't spend a lot of time. I think I just kind of me and my wife just got one and then just kind of set it and forget it, right? And then
Hmm.
I think we were still focused on our project. Um, and then that was really it. Like, and then learning about other stuff that was dropping, like, oh, what's the next mint, right? Like, oh, was
Yeah.
it Mechaverse or like, or Hape or like, just whatever. And so I think we're just kind of looking at other projects as well when they were coming out. And so like VeeFriend, because that's how it was. That's how 21's like fall and early that next year was like we were looking at like what was the next thing that was
What was
gonna
next? Yeah.
do super well or the next thing that was gonna be part of that ethos of pushing that culture. And so it was a cool time, but also a stressful time, but also it was just the Wild West. It still is, but like it was definitely the during the end of that year.
Definitely wild. Yeah, a lot could happen in minutes. Um, Bags can be made or broken in just a few minutes in those days. So what was the first character you got? Do you remember?
It is a core spontaneous seahorse, and we still hold it.
Amazing. So that was one of the first of many. So at some point in in April of 22, the following year, they dropped Series 2, which everyone that was a Series 1 holder got airdropped an evolving pose of their character,
Mm.
and a surprise drop box of cards per mint. Uh, you, spoiler alert, or the first one ever to collect that we know about, at least. I'm pretty sure we can say that as fact. I haven't looked at the chain, but I have a feeling that you know what's going on there. Um, to own all 251 characters, unique characters. At what when did this journey start? At what point did you, I mean, did you get sucked into Series 2 when you got airdropped? Was it later? Talk to me about your origin story of collecting that, because that is a monumental feat, and congratulations, first of all,
Oh, thanks,
because
thanks, man.
that's fascinating, and I'm so looking forward to diving into hearing your thought process behind this.
Yeah, I feel like I have, I guess just to let you know, Rob, like I have a very analytical mind, but there's a lot of my mind that like kind of is spontaneous. I was very much like this in high school, but um, to go back a little bit, because I'm trying to think exactly like the main reasoning, and I really kind of just landed on spending more time in the community, but also I think there was a sense of gratitude to Gary, just because um, earlier this year was kind of when me and my wife were like, we're just grateful for kind of the tools and the things and the resources that Gary's kind of brought onto us as far as even just culture. He's taught me a lot of maybe not the tactical things, but he kind of gave me that starter. Um, and I think we really saw the fruit of everything earlier this year, even last year. And so I think that I wanted to naturally spend more time with what was important to him, which it's always been VeeFriends since it launched, right? Um, and so just spending more time in the community and being like, you know what, I really love VeeFriends actually. And not that I didn't before, but I think I was kind of distracted with a lot of other things. So like I had my own project in 21. Also at the end of 21, I actually was working for him on his Vayner NFT team, which is now I believe Vayner 3. I was there until June of 22, and then I remember the first VCon was super cool because I had to like take work off. I was like, I'm just gonna play hooky, dude. Like I'm just gonna. And
Mm,
so like I remember seeing my team, like meeting them in person because we were all just remote.
sure.
Um, and then decided to leave in June of 22, and then wanted to really grow my business again. Was doing other things. I felt like I was always distracted, and it really wasn't until earlier this year that I was able to really like what are the like key value things. Another component of that, I think, of a lot of the reasoning is that kind of going into this political cycle, and I'm not going to talk politics on here, but kind of the what I understood from last cycle was that everything was so contentious, and there like wasn't enough love, and I knew that that was coming from this year, and I knew that that was earlier this year. I really understood like this later this year is going to get pretty rough for a lot of people, and I knew the environment that I didn't want to be in, and so I think that I was also just searching for things that were really cool that was positive, which is one of the greatest things that I love about VeeFriends. It is very positive. It's very much against what the world is trying to emulate as far as online. I feel like a normal neighborhood, if you turn off the phones and if you turn off the internet, everything is honestly fine. Like I think people are most mostly like cordial with each other. But I think it's when you turn on the internet, sometimes it just gets fiery and just there's a lot of ire between people and groups and tribalism and all this stuff. But I think VeeFriends is complete opposite of that. And um, that's kind of the reasoning behind that mixed in with I love Pokemon. And so it's like you got to catch them all. And
Yeah.
so it was just kind of like these goals of like showing gratitude and also kind of a goal for myself. and it was just fun, right? And so it's just kind of a mixture of all those different things of why. So there isn't really one answer why I decided to collect all the VF2 characters. Glad I did, but like along the way, like just met a ton of cool people, and like you guys are so awesome, and there's just really. I'd always been in the community, but um, I was mostly in Impact Theory also for the first two VCons.
Hmm.
Tom stuff was really into that, but this last time was the first time that I'd actually had friends that were from VeeFriends that I was really excited to meet at VCon, and yeah, it was priceless, man. It was really cool. So I'm just great. It goes so funny like to think about because it's such a 21, 22 term to say like, oh yeah, here for the community. But
Yeah,
it's like no, it really honestly was. Like it's such a cool community and like when people make fun of VeeFriends on Twitter, I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like this place is the greatest. And so it's just cool. I'm just grateful to be here.
I love that. And one of my favorite, and I've quoted this a dozen times on here, but one of my favorite Gary quotes is about VeeFriends is that it's a community in a sea of non-communities. Like everyone else just kind of used the word very cheaply.
Mm.
But this is a true community. Like that's why I'm
Yeah.
still here doing this podcast. Um, because of the community. So I love that. Through that, because I didn't look back, I don't think far enough to see when you started posting, out of 251. But on August 26, 2024, you tweeted, receipts Gary V. I own all 251 of your Series 2 VeeFriends characters. The Black Cat, of course, was last. Um, was there a point in time or a number that you were at where you're like, okay, I'm going for this?
So before I did, oh, you mean like when I decided to go for all
When
of them?
you're like, yeah, when the goal, when you spoke it into existence.
That so before then I remember so I was kind of collecting so I was collecting the goats. So I was going first for VF1s
Yeah.
and then I had I'm trying to remember. I think the first one before a goat was the dinner deer. And completely knowing that like the dinner deer there was no more for everyone who doesn't know or who does know, just to reiterate, like the dinner deer is the one of like 10 NFTs to have like a 90-minute or 60-minute dinner once a year with Gary or
Hmm.
whatever. So I knew that there wasn't any more, but I was like, I'm just gonna throw a bet that he might renew it, and I still don't know if he will or not. But I was like, why not? So it was super cheap, and so I got that one. Well, comparatively to what it was before, but so I grabbed that one, grabbed a few goats, and then I think that after I had a few goats, and knowing that like kind of the contract for the goats is kind of running up, I don't know. Like I think a handful of the VF2s without thinking, and I just kind of like I have to have some sort of purpose behind here. So I probably honestly had maybe 10
Okay.
and then when
Wow.
I decided. So it was pretty early on that I was like, yeah, but I think I kept quite I can't remember when I first posted. I think maybe I was at 50 or 70 when I first kind of declared it on X, but um I had the idea pretty early on like as far I had a handful of them and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do it. So
That's so awesome. All right, so I'm gonna throw two questions at you at once, and you could decide what order you want to tackle them. So throughout this whole process, and everything's about the process, in the Gary world. But the older I get and the wiser I try to that I think I get, it's just true. So I'm curious, what did you learn about yourself through this process of collecting, and what did you learn about VeeFriends throughout this journey?
Um, what did I learn about myself? I think it goes back to community. I think that I'm a huge introverted person, which I don't seem like it, but I call myself an outgoing introvert. So I'd actually much rather spend most of my time by myself, but I think once a year when I go to VCon is like the time that I can just be with people, and I know how important it is. So I think something that I learned about myself is how important it is to have other people in my life, not just my family. My wife's my best friend, and I will only ever need her and my children and my direct family. But I think there's always been purpose as far as community, or like if you have your village, your town, your group of people. And I think I really understood that like I gotta continue to keep others in my life. And also during this time, I say like understanding kind of again going with like the whole election thing, like where people are trying to be divisive or people are being separated. Like I think that there's people who need more love, and to be shown that. And I hope to be more from like for myself to be a better person, but also for other people. Because I think that, I think that we're here to help each other. I think we're here to support each other. And um, so I guess like a newfound purpose of like I gotta be less introverted. I don't know, I gotta reach out more and I gotta network more. Not networking for business, but networking just to keep relationships because
Mm.
relationships is kind of like it's the most important thing, honestly. I think human interaction is just beautiful in itself. So that's the one thing. So what was the other question? Was
What
what
did
did
you
I
learn
learn
about
about
V?
VeeFriends?
Yep.
Gotcha. Um, I think I learned the traits more in the characters. Honestly, I don't know. Like it's super cool to like I really understood kind of the nuances of kind of other than like Gary's put in a lot of time in this. And I think that he's kind of done it for like his whole life, right? Because he said he doodled as a kid.
Hmm.
So I think these characters have been in really good development for a really long time. I think I learned a lot about how much he loves these characters and he loves also these traits that are extremely needed in this world today. And I think that I always forget that like they're not just soft traits, which is well, the first thing that I think about is like the soft traits of the characters, but I got to think about like also like the the Gary fire of so like competitive clown and like all these other ones that aren't as soft, but they're important as well. And the last few years I've really noticed everything's a distraction. And also Gary came out with this book of day trading attention.
Hmm.
And I'm like, because there's so much distraction, and I don't think it's gonna let up. I think it's gonna get much, much worse. And so I think with this, everything just kind of being, where's your attention going to? Because even then, even when I was 14 years old, like I remember just being like, the world is such a distracting place, and everything is trying to fight for my attention, and it just gets the the water's boiling, just high, like the temperature's getting hotter every single year. And so, what are the things that I really want to keep in my life? And so, I think that Gary understands that, and I think he understands about VeeFriends, and especially with this book that he came out with recently, just understanding kind of the distraction of the world and how he's going to stand out by having these things that are, I think, almost completely lost in like the social media realm, but most people care about speaking of these traits in the culture of kind of what VeeFriends is about. And so I think that's something that I learned about was all that.
I love the way you put that. It's so true. People do strive for all of those things. It just with amongst all of those distractions that you're referring to, it just gets lost, and it just kind of trickles down the priority ladder of what they're going to strive to put out into the world, or even be open to receiving. So I love that the characters are go in many different forms, collectibles, shows, whatever. They're gonna, you know, get out there in the
Yeah.
limelight. So I, as a a parent, educator, and just person, I'm looking forward to that. You know, even just hearing my kids say some of these traits out loud is nice. It's just a good feeling. So
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you, is there something that you do with your kids to like bring up the character? So for example, for our little girl, well, all of our kids are picky eaters, but if we're trying to get them to eat a new food, or just to at least try it. We're like, "Oh, are you gonna be a brave bison?" And they get so stoked about it, and like, "Oh my gosh,
yeah,
I'm a brave bison!" So like our little girl, she's 3, and she'll just try more new foods compared to our other kids, but she'll just be like, "I'm a brave bison," and so she'll just eat it without like hesitation because we've kind of brought that on. So I don't
yeah.
know if there's anything like that that is similar to with because I know I don't interact with a
Oh,
lot of other families that have friends, but
yeah. No, I mean, patient pig. My son called me a patient pig the other day, or he told me to be a patient pig. Um, that was a bit like, come on, Dad, be a patient pig. Um, so yeah, no, he's really caught the bug through the cards. The cards is probably the biggest.
yeah,
When I actually brought when he had physical cards, and now he always looks at her. collector's corner and wants to, move things around and organize, and he's got his own now. And
Yeah,
he's
that's
wanted a
sweet.
YouTube channel for a long time, and we gave that to him, and he wants VeeFriends to be a big part of that. So um he's really taking it on. Like he gets it. He's just, I mean, we're blessed that he's got a good heart, and appreciates these traits in characters just as much as we do, as much as we're talking about. But a little thing that's cool, and Ann Bag had this idea, and I used a lot. I took a whole bunch. I took like 20 of the CNC card or the TCG cards, and I made
Mhm.
a memory game. So we play memory. Well, you know, 10 characters, two cards of each character, and we just mix it around.
Oh,
We play
gotcha. Yeah,
memory, and it's just it's like a fun little thing that we could do it with anything, but like to have those traits and saying those characters, talking about those characters, it's just a nice little thing to embed in the everyday life.
that's awesome.
So that's one little thing. Did you ever get into the cards?
Yeah, yeah, I have a stack right here in front of me. I was actually gonna say, yeah, it's another thing that I think that Gary did really well that I didn't realize how the cards kind of seemed like its own ecosystem, like it seemed very separate because I was just in the NFT side, and then I was like, oh, like the card side is like it's very like it's really its own thing, and so
Mm,
that was really cool to kind of discover as well. But yeah, our kids are stoked on the cards too. That's a good idea with the matching game because my daughter, she loves, we have a princess matching game like Disney Princess.
hmm
And so that's actually a really good idea that I'm going to try now. So thanks for the idea.
Yeah. No, I saw. I got to give it to Anne because she posted once. I was like, that's genius. Because here are the cards right here. Um, yeah, the cards. I was always kind of. I had my group of people at VCon that I'd kind of gravitate to, but
Uh-huh.
the cards was definitely like my first family within the family. And it's really nice to see it grow and just to see different people, using that platform and sub community for good and to uplift their spirits whenever. So it's been fascinating to watch from the first row there.
Absolutely.
Um, wrapping up the um the journey of you accomplishing this unbelievably cool feat of collecting all of them. And on August 2nd, 2024, you tweeted, "I love my V friends. Back at 250 unique VeeFriends 2 characters, I'm going to pass a smidge of time before I attempt to get my prize black cat and complete my collection." So, Gary always talks about this. Obviously his lifelong goal is to buy the New York Jets, but he said many times it might be the worst day of his life because like
Hmm.
he's achieved that goal. Was there any kind of, for you, was it like, did you soak it in and just kind of relish in it? I get a feeling you could have gotten that black cat at any time, or was it like, all right, now what? Or was there a sense of letdown? Like, where were you mentally when you finally got to the top of the mountain?
Yeah, I think growing up, my leaders have always said like join the journey. And so I was kind of really just like, yeah, the journey's the best part. Don't let anyone trick you. So just like you said, like, yeah, that Gary would say that the worst day of his life would be when he gets the Jets. Um, I mean, it's bittersweet for a minute, but it's not very lasting. So I think it's a cool accomplishment. I think it's really cool to look at again. But I think the beauty about life is that we're striving for something else always. Like it's not always about the goal. It's not always about that like the end destination, but it's always just you got to continue on. So I always knew that. But then there's also a season of rest, right? And so I think that right now, like there are some things here and there that I'm snagging, but I don't have like an immediate goal of anything. I'm pretty satisfied, and I have to tell myself like I'm content. I'm good. Like what am I building right now? Um, so I mean, I am grabbing some stuff. I like to wait for the treasure chests that happen every like 3 to 5 weeks or whatever. So I get excited for that because it's competitive for me. So it's like, oh, there's a chance of losing, which I love because when you lose, it gives you the joy of like when you do win. And so,
Mm.
lost this last one. I think in my term, I didn't get a VF1 this last treasure chest, but which is still super cool because someone else got the VF1 that was there. But as far as the NFT portion, I think I'm pretty satisfied, but I do miss kind of the joy of the journey of collecting them. Um, and this is going to be one for the books this year of what kind of we've been able to do. But right now, kind of the next thing is because I've been pretty quiet in the community, but um, I'm starting an Etsy page for this artwork just for fun.
Oh, cool.
And I'm not trying to. So I have over 100 listings like on our shop, but I'm treating it as a game. And so I'm just like, we've had one sale. I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. Like the first sale is always super good, but I'm just like, I'm not worried about that. Like I gotta wait till I get 600 listings and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
So our jewelry business, we're mostly on Etsy as well, and that's where we make 95% of our income is through that. And we only have 200 listings. So it's like pushing myself in a different way because it's not jewelry. It's a completely different avenue of something else. And I'm trying to do even more listings. So I'm just trying to think of, um, I've heard this often that like, I don't know if you know Alex Ramotsy, but he was on an
Oh,
interview
yes.
with Tom Bilyeu, and he would say like, a lot of people who were able to build wealth or build a good business or something like that, they often feel like they're lucky. And I've felt like that a lot. I know that I'm blessed. I know that we're super blessed. And I know there's certain things that I had to do that I had to keep working at. Because like I told you, like we've been at this for 5 to 7 years and doing this. But sometimes I do feel lucky enough. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I got to prove myself that it wasn't just luck. And so I have to do something else. And so this is kind of
Mm.
the join the journey of working on something else that's hard. But it's not going to be super fast. And I do have to be a patient pig about it. And so we're just going to see, we're heading into spooky season. But I honestly hope it doesn't do super well. Like I don't want it to help me if because it's spooky season, because it's October. Like I almost want to like make sure I work even harder after because I know it'll be over and I'll have the rest of like
Right.
the 11 months of the, you know what I mean? To be like, oh, like I have to make this work outside of October. And
Yeah.
so it's just
Totally
a
get
fun
what you're saying.
challenge. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
I love that competitive spirit, even with yourself. So VCon, you mentioned VCons. You've been to all three. I got to bring up. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up your uh epic win. Not only did you achieve, not only did you achieve collecting all 251 VF2 characters this year, you also brought home the Uno championship. Uh, I we for those of you listening, uh, Ghost Kid and I were at the second round. Yeah, that second round we were at the same
Yeah.
table, and I got absolutely crushed. I think I got skipped and given for every time by you. But it couldn't have. I couldn't have uh, lost to a nicer guy. You go on to win. Gary also sprinkles the pot. It started with $10,000, then it ended up $11,000 in addition to the trophy. What was that very unique and amazing experience? But I love what they did with that event. Just one of my highlights. But talk to us about what you were thinking there. You're at the final table. Gary's there. Gary's a huge part of it, talking on the mic and dumping money in the pot. Talk to us about what's going through your mind then.
Um, it's all, it's So in my church growing up, like it's always known for like they always invite you to speak up in front of a congregation for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whether you're a kid or an adult or whatever. And so I remember thinking like I'm so nervous for it, but then once it actually happens, once you're up there, it's like the nerves are gone. That's how I felt. Like once I got up on that stage with the other seven, it was just go time. Like I don't know how else to say it. Like it was just like I wasn't nervous anymore. I remember before we started even the first round. I was like, I don't even know. I don't know if I remember how to play Uno. It's been like 10 years. But as far as what I was thinking, what I mean by go time is like I just competitive. And I think that everyone deserved it on there too to win. And I was actually, to be honest, I was super bummed. So like when I won, um, Gary was like, "Do you have any words you want?" Or like I like had motioned to give me the mic, whatever. Like after the whole thing, and I was just like, I had so much fun like playing with the seven players. I want to like share the pot, and he was like, no, and that made me sad. I was like, oh my gosh, like I want okay, but Um, I don't know. Like it was just, I think that like I wanted to do that because I was just more grateful for the experience of it, and it's something that I'll never forget. Um, just because I look up to Gary so much, and he just, I don't know, he's done a lot for us, And so it was cool to like just be there and even to overcome some of my nervousness because I wasn't going to do the Uno. And then I think someone from the community was like, no, you should definitely do it. And like really got me into like just being like, yeah, you got this, man. I was like, okay, cool. So really pumped me up. And that was just, it was just cool. It was just a super good experience. It was really cool to tell my wife, back at home. I called her
Yeah.
after. I was like, guess what? This person, the winner, let me hold the trophy. And I sent her a picture of it. And she's like, "You're a liar. You won." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. Like, I have no idea how. Like, this was just, but it was honestly like it was just fun playing with my friends, babe. Like, this was so cool, and I will never forget this." So,
Amazing. Amazing. Such a cool event, and congratulations again. Um, before we get to our last segment here, I just want to thank you again for coming on. Going to the it's a great community, as we've said. Going to the events is fantastic to see the people you know, but then to meet people that you kind of know about or haven't met. It was so nice to finally meet you. Happy we were at the same table. I was happy for 95% of the time that we were at the same table. Um, but I appreciate you coming on. And I've seen your generosity in the timeline. I feel like you've given away many, many, many NFTs. Just I don't know the number, but the acts of generosity are very apparent. So thank you. And with that said, a lot of people are very generous and humble in this community, where they don't do things out in the open. Is there anyone that you comes to your mind to give roses to or blow the whistle on in a positive way that you want to shout out?
um, I Brian Geronimo. He has an epic
Doxing.
dachshund, yeah, and we actually go way back as far as when we actually launched our project with me and my wife. He was a huge community member then, and every time I saw him at VCon, he's just such a heartwarming guy. Just love Brian. I think that he is one of the kindest people that I know, and I love that about him. And just happy that he fits super well with this community. So yeah, give some roses to Brian. He's cool.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, definitely. It was great to finally meet Brian too. We're a big doxy. We literally have dachshunds as our dogs, so
Oh,
we have
awesome.
a soft spot for the dachshunds out there. Real quick, last segment. It's called Micro Macro Spitfire. So I'm gonna throw a whole bunch of questions at you, and you can answer rapid fire as fast as you want. You could go general yes no one word answer in the macro, or you can take out your microscope and elaborate why your answer is what it is. All right, so
Sure,
here we
let's
go.
do it.
Micro macro Spitfire with Ghost Kid Art. Here we go. Um, who a secret talent you have that most people don't know?
Oh gosh, secret talent. I can put my tongue behind into my nasal cavity.
Oh wow,
Do
that's
you want me to
wild.
show you on camera?
Sure.
It's kind of gross. Okay, if you need to like blur this out, like whatever, because I know it's kind of weird, but
I mean, if
I don't
you
even know if
offer,
you're gonna be able to.
I can't say no to that. I've never heard of that.
Anyway, so okay, I'll show you, but here we go. So it looks like my tongue disappears. So it's easier to see
Wow,
it in person, but
it's a little
anyway, I
blurry on
thought
my end. It's gonna look
okay.
great in the finished product.
I
Wow,
was gonna
but like I
everyone
got the gist of it. That's
I
wild.
thought everyone could do that in like I didn't realize till like middle school that no one could do that. I thought everyone could do that. So
Oh, I just tried. I can't. Um, favorite teacher you had growing up and one reason why?
uh Mr. Nelson, because he always talked in I thought in the moment with silly parables. He would like give like these weird one-liners or like he was like the wisest guy in the room. But then like you didn't realize till later, like, oh, like everything he said is super wise. So there's a lot of life lessons that he's taught me that I picked up on. He's a good guy. He's my English teacher, but yeah.
Love that. Your favorite piece of physical VeeFriends memorabilia or collectible? Favorite physical?
Oh, my patient panda hoodie, my black one. I wear that all the time, and I just love it. It's so comfy, and it's just it reminds me to be patient because I need to be more patient. But it's super cool. So I'm a huge hoodies guy. So
If it was illegal to keep more than one social media platform, which one would you keep?
if it was illegal to keep more than
If it,
one,
if it was illegal to keep more than one, and you could only have one, which one would you keep?
I would keep Instagram. To be
What
honest,
was your
that's probably
favorite?
unpopular with the what's that?
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think that people would be like, "Oh, you should have chosen X because of VeeFriends." But oh, hold on. Does this Discord count? Is social media? Because that's kind of like
Oh,
that's an
that's a
interesting.
good
Because
question.
outside keep Discord probably. So yeah. If Discord counts, then I'd choose Discord. But if not, then I choose Instagram.
No one's ever That's never come up in over 60 episodes. Yeah, I would probably count it. So we're going Discord. Discord
Okay,
for the
sweet.
record.
Yeah.
What was your favorite IP growing up?
Oof. I would say, oh gosh, Pokemon on the friendlier side, or Resident Evil from more adult, darker zombie video game side.
Favorite concert you've ever been to?
Just the one that I went to just a few weeks ago with my wife in Washington. We went to Falling in Reverse, which is a heavier rock band or whatever. It was cool because it's not the music that my wife likes. It's she likes a lot of Taylor Swift and a lot of other stuff, but like seeing her reaction of how good the show was and like her telling me that she liked it and she like would come from the gym like after that show and got home, she like yeah, like I was playing the whole set list at the gym. I was like, "What? You played that?" Like and she surprised me as it was a trip that she surprised me for Father's Day to go to that concert because she knew how much that band meant to me. So I was like, that is wild.
I love that.
Another reason why that concert was super good was because one of the opening bands was called Dance Gavin Dance, and their old singer, they switched out their old singer and their new singer, and I didn't find out till I got there to that show. I was like, that guy looks familiar. And it was someone I went to high school with it when I was in bands me and him had played shows with. And so it was this
Wow.
crazy coincidence and an
Yeah,
awesome show. But yeah, that was the micro of that. But yeah.
that's super cool. Favorite movie?
Don't have one, but my favorite series is Star Wars.
If it's as you we mentioned, it's election season, election year. What V friend needs to be voted into the White House in 2024?
Compassionate catfish. We need more compassion in this world.
Bougie hotel or hiking and camping in the woods?
Um, what I'm feeling right now is bougie hotel. Usually I'd go with camping or hiking in the woods, but for some reason right now I'd really like to be in a bougie hotel.
Would you rather have a 2-hour group dinner experience with Gary, let's say you and 9 other people for 2 hours, or a 10-minute one-on-one?
Um, Probably a group setting. Um, I don't think I need the one-on-one. When I used to work for Gary, I had scheduled time. Someone on my team's like, you should schedule time with Gary because you're an employee and you can. And I was like, okay, but then after thinking about it, like I didn't really need it. Um, and I think that he's given me a lot of answers for a lot of things I think other people should have sometimes. So yeah, I'll choose group setting.
And if you had the chance to ask him one question, if he's here right now, he's answering honestly. Could be anything, alpha, whatever. What would you ask him?
Um, I would ask him. I don't know. That's a hard one. I feel like there's a lot of things that he's given that I feel like I've listened to him so much for such a long time that I feel like I have everything that, like, because I think a lot of life is repetition. Like the way that we learn is just repetition, and that's his vibe for sure. Is like he repeats a lot of the same stuff. It's because it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe I would ask him his thoughts on, because I know he's huge on family, and so maybe I'd ask him kind of. I just want to get a deeper understanding, like why family is important. So I'd be like, why is family important to you? The
Mm.
nitty gritty of like. So I think a deep conversation of that, of like, why is family important?
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. Um, Jake, thanks so much for coming on.
appreciate it,
We'll
man.
we'll link up all your stuff, the Etsy, the Insta, all of it. But check them out, Ghost Kid Art on X, at least for the time being. And same thing on Insta. Or
Instagram is Ghost Kid Trading Cards.
got it.
Yeah.
Really
Hey,
appreciate you
appreciate it,
being
Rob.
here.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, can't wait to jam again soon.